To do a monoprint, I first chose a picture. This is a picture that I want to do. And when printmaking, anytime you make a print plate, which is what we're going to do when we paint on the glass, when you print it, it's going to come out looking like a mirror image of the picture. So I printed out another version that is just flipped horizontally. So I'm going to use that as my guide. So I'm going to put the glass on top of this picture and use some tape to tape it down. So now I'm ready to paint on the glass. I'm going to use some regular speedball ink, and it's going to dry on the plexi, but that's okay because we're going to print it using damp paper, which will then make the ink wet enough that it will transfer onto the paper. For most of this, I'm going to be using regular paint brushes to apply the ink, but I noticed that there's a really nice gradation of blue to like a really, really light pale blue. So I'm gonna try making a rainbow roll using a roller like this and some of that speedball ink. And I also need a little tray to put the ink on. So I'm gonna use this tray here. It's a little damp, so I wanna make sure I dry it off. And then I'm gonna take some of this white and also some of this aqua blue. And then some of this deeper blue. And I think that some of these blues might be a little bit dark, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of white over there too and see how that works out. So what I'm gonna do now is take this paint, or the ink, excuse me, and I'm just gonna roll it on here, and I'm gonna go just up and down to mix the ink. So I wouldn't go roll this way at all because I just wanna have this nice gradation. So then I can take my roller and go right over the sky here with a nice thin coat of this ink. Now you might be wondering what I'm gonna do with those clouds over there, those orange clouds that just got covered up. And that would be a good question. It's a little hard to see through, but I can take a paper towel and wipe away some of this gradation where the clouds seem to be. Now, because I can't actually see through, this gets a little bit tricky. So you just have to go slow and don't worry about it being absolutely perfect. Okay, so I've wiped away that ink. And again, don't worry about it being absolutely perfectly placed where you wipe. I'm not gonna worry about the fact that the clouds may not match up to where I wiped. If the placement is super important to you, then you may want to not use the roller because it will cover up so much of your image, but it's just an option. So now I'm going to use the color inks that I used for the sky, but this time I'm gonna use them on the water area. So I have a tube of brushes here, and I'm gonna use these ones to apply the paint, or the ink, excuse me. I'm also gonna need a cup of water to kind of soften the ink a little bit. It's also good to have a paper towel nearby in case you make a mistake and need to wipe anything off. So I'll put that to the side. So to paint on the surface here, it's just like you're making a regular painting. I'm just gonna wipe away a little bit here to show the surface of the water. You don't need a thick coat. If you have a really thick coat, it might end up kind of smearing or getting squished when you actually go ahead and print it. So just enough that it kind of covers up the image below. You might be able to see a little bit through, and that's okay. If it has a hard time moving around on the surface, then it probably just needs a little bit more water to make it move around a little bit better. If you're wondering what your picture looks like as you're working, you can just take a piece of white paper and slip it underneath, and that will show you what it would look like when it's printed. So every once in a while, you can check using that method just to see what it looks like. Sometimes I feel like using the Q-tip will do a little bit of a better job of creating those little stripes. Okay, so I'm not sure how that's gonna look. Let me check it. Oh, okay, I don't mind that. It looks pretty cool. All right, so now I'm gonna maybe change up my palette a little bit and start adding in some of the non-blue areas. I'm gonna add some of these oranges, and it's kind of like a purplish, brownish color. And I know that if I have some orange and some red, and I mix it with some of these blues that I have, I might get sort of this duller color. So right now, I'm just going to get another knife here and put a little bit of this orange down. This is a very, very bright orange. And I'm gonna put a little pink on as well. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna need this red, but I figure, actually, you know what? I might wait on the red. I don't know how much I'll need it, but I'll put a little bit of yellow there just in case I need to lighten things up a little bit. I'm realizing that I had a lot of ink on my palette before, so you don't really need a ton of it because the coat you're putting down is really pretty thin. I'm gonna go wash my water and I'll be back. Okay, I'm ready for some blacks. Let's do this. I am gonna keep some of these other colors on my palette because I may wanna mix them. My palette's getting a little crazy, a little dirty right now. But I'm gonna mix up sort of like that muddy brownish color, just so I have that kind of neutral that isn't completely black. I think my palette's a little bit too messy for this, but I'll give it a try. Okay, so I know that there's some of these little trees. I'm gonna try painting them on top of the blue here and there, but I may paint fewer trees than what's actually on there. Just because things that are really highly detailed can often be a little bit problematic when doing the monoprinting. It's just in my experience, it can be a little tough. So I mix that black with a little bit of that neutral color, like I mentioned before, just so that I have like a little bit of dimension to the background back here, because you can in the picture see that there's actually some green, there's some highlights on the mountains. I'm not gonna go crazy making all of those things, but I'm gonna add a little bit of lighter color to some of these mountains. It's like that purplish color. And then I'm gonna add some black in between those purplish areas. So it just gives some shading and dimension to those